Waverly Hills Sanatorium, nestled atop a quiet hill in Louisville, Kentucky, is more than just a decaying structure. It is a vessel of pain, history, and whispers that refuse to be silenced. On the surface, it stands as a relic of early 20th century medicine, but for those who've dared to step inside after sunset, Waverly is something else entirely. Before we go any further, take a second to like this video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy the eerie stories we share here on Clara After Dark. Drop a comment and let me know where you're watching from and what time it is on your clock. It's always fascinating to see the night owls gathered from all corners of the world. Now, dim your lights, let that soft hum of a fan fill the background, and let's walk into the dark together. Opened in 1910 during the height of the tuberculosis epidemic, the original structure was a modest two-story building designed to house around 6 to worship patients. But as tuberculosis, then known as the White Plague, spread like wildfire, Waverly expanded into a massive Gothic-style complex. Its long, arched hallways, cavernous rooms, and echoing stairwells were built not just for treatment, but for isolation. In an age without antibiotics, sunlight and fresh air were the primary prescriptions. The patients, many of them children and young adults, often spent hours lying on porches, exposed to the elements in a desperate hope for recovery. The sanatorium eventually grew to accommodate over 400 patients at a time, and yet it was never enough. People continued to flood in, and far too few walked out alive. It's estimated that thousands, some say as many as 8,000, died within Waverly's walls over its 50 years of operation. But as chilling as those numbers are, it's not just the death toll that haunts Waverly Hills, it's the way they tried to hide it. Beneath the sanatorium lies the infamous death tunnel. It is a 500-foot underground passageway used to transport bodies from the facility to the bottom of the hill. Officially, it was called the body chute. Staff used it to discreetly remove corpses so that the still living patients wouldn't see the frequency of death surrounding them. The intention may have been merciful, but the result was deeply macabre. It was a tunnel of shadows, grief, and restless souls, and it's here that many believe the darkness of Waverly began to take form. Over the years, countless visitors and investigators have reported seeing unexplained figures within that tunnel, shadow-like beings moving along the walls, darting between the rusted gurneys and decaying stretchers. But one entity is ascribed time and time again, what many now call the creeper. The creeper isn't like the traditional apparitions seen in haunted houses. It doesn't resemble a person, nor does it move like one. It slinks, it crawls, sometimes on the ceiling, sometimes along the walls. Witnesses describe it as a black mass, humanoid in shape but entirely wrong in motion, like something that doesn't belong in this world. It moves low, without a sound, and it watches, not with eyes, but with presence. Heavy, oppressive, suffocating presence. Even seasoned ghost hunters have fled the sanatorium after encountering it. One former tour guide recalled seeing a guest freeze in place, pale as the walls, eyes locked on something only she could see. When she finally spoke, all she whispered was, "It was crawling above us." And the moment she said it, every flashlight in the group flickered out. There's something deeply unsettling about the kind of silence you find in places like Waverly Hills. It's not the peaceful kind. It's the heavy, suffocating silence that feels like it's listening, watching, waiting for someone to make the mistake of speaking too loudly or stepping too far into the dark. The creeper, as we started to explore in the first part, doesn't behave like your average ghost. It doesn't float gently down a hallway or appear as a fleeting image in a mirror. Witnesses say it's fast, unnatural, like it's skipping across dimensions just slightly out of sync with ours. Some describe feeling a static charge in the air before it appears, hair standing on end, sudden nausea, or even temporary paralysis. One paranormal investigator claimed his legs gave out just before seeing the black mass drop from the ceiling and vanish before hitting the floor. And it's not confined to the death tunnel. There have been sightings on every floor, particularly in the old surgical rooms and what's now known as the solarium wing, an area where patients were once forced to lie outside in the dead of winter, their lungs rotting from the inside out. This was where fresh air was believed to heal. Now, it's where shadows grow thickest. A group of amateur investigators once camped overnight in that wing, hoping to capture footage of the creeper. Around 3 a.m., their thermal cameras picked up a cold spot moving swiftly down the corridor, far colder than the rest of the already chilly room. One member broke from the group, chasing it down the hall, only to drop his camera and run back screaming. When they reviewed the footage, a dark figure was visible for less than a second. It wasn't walking. It was crawling up the wall, toward the ceiling, and then gone. But not everyone sees the creeper. Some only feel it a weight on their chest, a presence behind them when they're completely alone. Tour guides report that some visitors become overwhelmed without warning, falling into sudden panic attacks or bursting into tears without understanding why. They say the creeper feeds off emotion, particularly fear, and once it locks onto someone, it follows. Some psychics who've visited Waverly believe the creeper is not human at all, nor ever was. They say it's something older, something that was drawn to the sanatorium by decades of death, pain, and hopelessness. A kind of spiritual parasite, born from suffering and now bound to the structure itself. Waverly Hills has countless spirits, but this one is different. It doesn't want to be seen. It wants to be felt. It wants you to know it's there when you're most alone, most vulnerable, when you're standing in the dark and suddenly forget why you're even afraid. And that's exactly when it strikes. The history of Waverly Hills Sanatorium is a story of sorrow and desperation. When antibiotics were still decades away, doctors and staff were left with few options to combat tuberculosis. Patients were separated by gender, age, and the severity of their illness. Families said their goodbyes, sometimes never to see their loved ones again. Many of the patients died alone, surrounded only by cold stone walls and the faint light from barred windows. Their final breaths were often taken in silence. But it was not just the disease that made this place terrifying. There were strange occurrences that staff could not explain. Footsteps echoing in empty hallways, doors opening and closing on their own, and sudden chills that ran down the spine. One nurse who worked at Waverly in the 1940s reported hearing whispering voices late at night. She described it as faint murmurs, almost like a chorus of sorrow. The voices seemed to come from the death tunnel beneath the building. She said she could never get close enough to see what was causing them, but the feeling of dread was overwhelming. The stories passed down from generation to generation among the hospital staff describe a presence that watches over the sanatorium, a dark figure that moves just out of sight, never fully revealed. This entity has been linked to the creeper, the black shadow that many visitors have encountered. Some say it is the embodiment of all the pain and suffering that happened within these walls. In the decades since the sanatorium closed in 1961, the building has fallen into ruin, but the stories have only grown. Paranormal investigators come from far and wide, hoping to capture proof of the supernatural. Some have reported unexplained noises on their recordings, cold spots, and even apparitions appearing in photographs. The creeper remains elusive. It refuses to be caught on camera for long. It seems to have a mind of its own, appearing and disappearing at will. Some believe it is tied to the death tunnel, but others think it roams the entire building. The deeper you go into Waverly Hills, the heavier the air becomes. The feeling of being watched intensifies, despite the fear it inspires. There is something captivating about Waverly Hills. It draws in those who seek answers to the unknown. Some say it is a place where the veil between worlds is thin, a crossroads between the living and the dead. As night falls and the darkness takes hold, the shadow figure waits. It waits for the next visitor, brave enough to enter its domain. And when you least expect it, you might just feel its presence crawling close by, watching you in silence. In the years following the closure of Waverly Hills Sanatorium, the building became a magnet for thrill seekers and paranormal enthusiasts. Many ventured inside hoping to catch a glimpse of the supernatural. Some came away with chilling stories. Others never came back quite the same. The sanatorium's decay only adds to its eerie atmosphere. Floors creak beneath footsteps that seem to echo without cause. Windows rattle as the wind blows through broken frames. The scent of mildew and rot clings to every corner. Local legend speaks of the death tunnel as the heart of the haunting. It was designed to move the dead unseen, but some believe it became a corridor for the restless. Visitors report sudden drops in temperature and an overwhelming sense of despair when near the tunnel's entrance. One paranormal team spent an entire night inside the death tunnel. Their thermal cameras recorded unexplained cold spots, moving against the natural flow of air. They captured faint whispers and low moans that seemed to come from the walls themselves. At one point, a member of the team felt as though something brushed past them. Though no one else saw anything, the creeper has been sighted in this tunnel more than anywhere else. Witnesses describe it as a fluid shadow, sometimes moving quickly, other times lingering just out of reach. Some believe it may be a manifestation of all the souls trapped in the sanatorium. Despite the fear and the dark history, Waverly Hills continues to draw the curious. It is a place where history and the paranormal collide, a reminder of a time when medicine struggled against an invisible enemy and lives were lost in silence. Walking through the ruins, you can almost hear the echoes of the past, the cries of patients, the footsteps of nurses, and the whispered prayers of those who hoped for healing. But lurking beneath it all is the shadow figure, watching silently, waiting for the next visitor to enter its domain. Many who have dared to explore Waverly Hills report a mix of terror and fascination. The building's tragic past seems to echo through every crumbling hallway and broken window. Stories tell of a presence that transcends time, haunting the place long after the last patient left. The creeper is said to be the most active spirit within the sanatorium. Its movements are unlike any other. Witnesses describe it as moving silently with unnatural speed and agility. Some have tried to capture it on camera, but only caught fleeting glimpses or cold spots. One chilling account comes from a former security guard. He described working the night shift when he suddenly felt an overwhelming sense of dread. As he patrolled the halls, he heard faint scratching noises coming from the walls. Turning a corner, he saw a dark figure creeping along the ceiling just out of reach. Frozen with fear, he watched as it disappeared into the shadows. There are also stories from visitors who felt sudden drops in temperature or experienced an intense feeling of being watched. Some claim the creeper can invade dreams, causing nightmares filled with suffocating darkness and crawling shadows. The sanatorium's dark history seems to feed the entity. Decades of pain, loss, and despair have created a spiritual energy that lingers. The creeper, many believe, is the embodiment of that energy, an eternal reminder of the lives lost within these walls. Despite warnings and countless tales, the allure of Waverly Hills remains strong. It continues to draw those intrigued by the paranormal and the macabre. For some, facing the terror here is a test of courage. For others, it is an obsession they cannot escape. As the shadows lengthen and night deepens, the creeper waits patiently. It watches silently from the darkness, ready to reveal itself to the next unfortunate soul who dares to enter its domain. Waverly Hills Sanatorium is more than just a building. It's a vessel carrying decades of untold stories, each one etched into its crumbling walls. Those who visit often speak of a profound sense of loss that lingers long after they leave. The energy here is heavy, as if the very air remembers every whispered prayer and desperate plea for healing. Paranormal researchers have documented numerous phenomena here: electromagnetic spikes, unexplained sounds, and fleeting shadows caught on video all point to a presence that refuses to rest. Yet, despite modern technology, the creeper remains elusive. It moves in and out of view with such speed and subtlety that capturing definitive proof is nearly impossible. Many who have encountered the creeper describe it as more than just a ghost. Some believe it is a dark entity, born from the collective pain and suffering of the sanatorium's past inhabitants. It's a shadow that feeds on fear and sorrow, growing stronger with every new visitor who senses its presence. The psychological toll of encountering the creeper can be severe. Visitors report feelings of paranoia, intense anxiety, and even physical symptoms like nausea and dizziness. Some have described waking up with unexplained bruises or scratches, leading to speculation that the entity can interact physically. Despite the danger, Waverly Hills remains a pilgrimage site for those fascinated by the paranormal. Its reputation as one of the most haunted places in America only fuels the curiosity of thrill seekers. But few are prepared for the overwhelming darkness that awaits inside. The creeper is patient. It waits in the shadows, watching, learning, and sometimes reaching out to those who dare to uncover its secrets. Every visit leaves an imprint, a story added to the endless cycle of fear and mystery that defines Waverly Hills Sanatorium. Years of exploration and countless investigations have only deepened the mystery surrounding Waverly Hills. Each visitor seems to bring a new story, a new piece of the puzzle. The creeper, elusive as ever, remains the central figure in these tales. It has become a symbol of the sanatorium's tragic past and the unknown forces that linger within its walls. Some researchers have tried to communicate with the entity using various methods. EVP sessions, Ouija boards, and modern digital devices have all been employed in the hope of contact. Occasionally, faint responses or strange noises are recorded, but nothing definitive enough to provide clear answers. Local folklore tells of a nurse who once confronted the creeper. According to legend, she was brave enough to face the shadowy figure, attempting to understand its pain. The story goes that she vanished mysteriously, leaving behind only a diary filled with cryptic messages and warnings. Psychics who have visited Waverly Hills often describe a feeling of overwhelming sadness mixed with anger. The creeper is said to harbor resentment towards the living, especially those who disrespect the site. Some believe it punishes those who come merely for thrills rather than respect. Despite these warnings, the sanatorium continues to attract thrill seekers and ghost hunters. Many are drawn by the promise of encountering the supernatural. Few are prepared for the emotional and psychological effects that often follow. The creeper's presence is a constant reminder that some places carry the weight of history, too heavy to ignore. It is a shadow cast by countless lives lost, a silent witness to suffering and despair. As night falls and the air grows colder, the shadow figure waits, watching, patient, ever present. Among the countless visitors to Waverly Hills, some have reported encounters that defy explanation. One such story comes from a group of friends who ventured into the sanatorium on a dare. They split up to explore different wings, hoping to catch paranormal activity on their cameras. As night deepened, one member of the group found himself alone in a long, narrow corridor. Suddenly, the temperature dropped drastically. His breath became visible in the cold air. He heard faint footsteps behind him, but when he turned around, there was nothing. A chilling feeling of being watched settled in. Then, without warning, a shadowy figure appeared at the end of the hall. It moved swiftly and silently toward him. The man froze, unable to move or scream. The figure seemed to crawl along the walls and ceiling, its form shifting and flowing like smoke. The friends regrouped after the terrifying encounter and hurried out of the building. When they reviewed their footage, they noticed strange orbs of light and fleeting shadows that were not visible to the naked eye. The experience left them shaken and questioning their understanding of reality. Stories like these have only added to the legend of the creeper. It is more than just a ghost or spirit. It is a presence that challenges the limits of the known world. Those who face it often come away changed, haunted by what they saw and felt. Waverly Hills Sanatorium remains a place where the veil between the living and the dead feels thinnest, a place where shadows whisper secrets and the past refuses to stay buried. As darkness envelops the ruins, the creeper waits patiently, always watching, always lurking in the shadows. The psychological effects of encountering the creeper can linger long after leaving Waverly Hills. Many visitors report vivid nightmares, feelings of paranoia, and a sense of being followed even outside the sanatorium's grounds. Some have sought therapy to cope with the trauma. Researchers believe that the entity's influence extends beyond the physical location. It seems to attach itself to those who come into contact with it. This has led to speculation that the creeper is not confined to Waverly Hills, but can follow its victims. One investigator recounted a chilling experience where, after a visit to the sanatorium, he began to notice unexplained shadows in his home. Lights flickered, objects moved on their own, and the sense of being watched persisted. Despite attempts to rid himself of the presence, it remained. The idea that the creeper can follow individuals has made many wary of visiting Waverly Hills. Some warn that curiosity comes at a price. Those who disrespect the site or seek fame may find themselves haunted in unexpected ways. The legacy of Waverly Hills is a cautionary tale. It reminds us that some places carry darkness that cannot easily be shaken off. The shadow figure is a reminder of the past's grip on the present, a constant lurking threat. For those brave enough to face it, the sanatorium offers more than just fear. It presents a glimpse into the unknown, a confrontation with forces beyond our understanding. As the night deepens, the creeper's watchful eyes remain fixed on its next target, waiting silently, ever patient. Not all who walk the halls of Waverly Hills leave with stories of terror. Some speak of a strange calmness, a quiet sorrow that permeates the building, but even that peace is often broken by the unexplained. Sounds of footsteps echo where no one walks. Doors creak open without a breeze. Whispers drift through empty rooms, too faint to understand, but impossible to ignore. Among the most unsettling locations is the old operating room. Abandoned surgical tools rest in rusted trays, and the faint scent of antiseptic still lingers. It is said that the creeper often appears here, feeding on the pain and fear left behind by countless failed operations and final breaths. One former nurse who toured the site described a sudden wave of emotion. Upon entering the room, grief, pain, and hopelessness hit her all at once. She saw a shadow shift across the far wall, but when she turned, the room was still. Her heart raced, and tears welled in her eyes, though she couldn't explain why. It's not always what you see at Waverly Hills that stays with you. It's what you feel. The way the air seems heavier, the way your skin tingles as if something unseen brushes past, the way your instincts scream at you to leave, even when your curiosity begs you to stay. The creeper thrives in these moments. It doesn't need to be seen. It only needs to be felt. And when fear takes root, it grows stronger. Visitors continue to come, some skeptical, others seeking answers, and a few just chasing a thrill. But all who leave take something with them, a memory, a chill, or a haunting sense that something followed them home. In the quiet hours just before dawn, Waverly Hills feels different. The darkness lifts slightly, but the feeling of being watched never fades. It's as if the building itself knows the night is ending and reluctantly retreats into stillness. Some say this is when the creeper is most active. Not loud or dramatic, but subtle and deliberate. Shadows flicker at the edge of vision, impossible to catch, yet impossible to ignore. It's in these moments that visitors feel the deepest sense of unease, a silent presence just behind them, breathing when no one should be there. A paranormal team once stayed through the entire night. As they reviewed footage during this early hour, they caught something strange. A tall, thin figure appeared in a hallway, standing still for several minutes before vanishing. No footsteps, no sound, just an image burned into the screen. Even skeptics on the team admitted it felt unnatural. This period, between night and day, has earned a name among locals and investigators alike. The in-between, a liminal time where reality seems fragile, and the past bleeds into the present. It's here that the creeper's influence seems to deepen, as if it knows the barrier between worlds is thinnest. The true horror of the creeper isn't its shape or movement, it's what it represents. A part of Waverly Hills that never healed, a remnant of agony that has no end. It isn't a ghost seeking closure, it is pain seeking company. As the sun finally begins to rise, the shadows pull back, but the feeling never fully disappears. It stays with you, in the back of your mind, in the pit of your stomach. A whisper that says, you were never truly alone in there. The legend of the creeper endures not because of what people see, but because of what they feel. Waverly Hills Sanatorium holds memories not written in books, but etched into the very bones of the building. It is a place where fear breathes and grief lingers. Over the years, researchers have tried to classify the creeper. Is it a residual haunting, a demonic force, or something born entirely from human suffering? The answers never satisfy. What's clear is that the entity does not want to be understood. It wants to be felt, to be feared. Those who claim to have stood in its presence describe a paralyzing dread, a sensation that invades the body like cold water. Some lose track of time. Others report sudden headaches, blurred vision, or overwhelming sadness. These aren't just ghost stories. They are physical reactions to something real. And yet, people return. Year after year, Waverly Hills draws the curious, the brave, and the desperate. Some seek answers. Others seek thrills. but nearly all leave with something they didn't arrive with, a lingering presence that follows them in dreams and shadows. If the creeper is real, then it is not bound by walls or time. It is something born from trauma, fueled by fear, and kept alive by memory. And if that's true, then perhaps we all carry shadows like it, not as terrifying or malevolent, but as reminders of what we've endured and what we've left unresolved. As we close the door on Waverly Hills, remember this: some places are haunted not just by spirits, but by the stories they refuse to let go. The creeper is one of those stories, still watching, still waiting, still there. Thank you for walking with me through the halls of Waverly Hills. If you enjoyed this journey, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. It really helps a lot. Don't forget to share where you're watching from and what time it is in the comments. Until next time, keep your lights low, your ears open, and your heart brave. Because in places like these, even silence has a voice.